Hello students and welcome back to Geography 113, Data Acquisition and Management here at PCC. I'm just recording a brief video check-in to remind you some of the assignments that you have coming up this week. So most students have already gotten through tutorial 1. Some of you are still finishing tutorial 2. And only a few students have turned in tutorial 3 as well. So I mentioned that because some students are barely catching up. Some of you, for example, were not able to get the book right away. All right, so just so you know, you're not the only one. If you're catching up with the class, I understand that online classes sometimes have a different prep period to really get into the swing of things, all right? But we're now in week 4, okay? And so as I told you, the class does move a little bit fast. So for this week, so you should have already finished Module 3. Module 3 does have a little more content than Module 2. Module 3, make sure to also watch the lecture on projections, coordinates, and datums. That's going to be very important. I decided that I'm going to have a short lab on projections and datums and transformations next week as well. So once we get over the midterm, I'm going to just have a short lab tutorial demonstration just so that you get comfortable moving around, changing different projections and datums, okay? And then there's that tutorial 3 on populating the geodatabase. For those students who are working through tutorial 3, on populating the geodatabase, I do want to point out that by the section that you reach, where is it? There is a section in this tutorial where you have to pay attention to the order of, let me see. So if you have the textbook in physical copy, it's on page 90, if you have the textbook, okay? This is the section called Your Turn, and if you don't have the textbook, it's after step 7 when you are loading the linear data, okay? So you're trying to basically append some information about the subtypes for the lot boundary, the right-of-way, and the split lot line, okay? So please pay attention to the instructions on the Your Turn instructions after step 7 in page 90. If you read that Your Turn instructions carefully, it tells you that you have to run a select by attributes operation for both the row, the split, and the lot line codes. Okay? Remember that you have to select the attributes that you are trying to append the information to before you can append information to them, okay? So I'm going to be recording a guided tutorial on that as well to make sure that I show you how that is supposed to go. Apologies, I'm late on that. In any case, if you are already getting through that portion of tutorial 3-1, just watch out for that section there. You're going to need to read those instructions carefully. Okay, what I want to point out for this module, I'm giving you some information about the final project already. I want to learn more about your final project, topics that you are going to focus on. I want us to start thinking about the type of data that you are going to need and how we are going to organize your geodatabase to integrate some of these shapefiles or feature classes so that we have the data that you need for your project, okay? One of the biggest challenges is finding the right data. So we want to start thinking about your topic so that we start looking into what data you're going to need. Tutorial 4, I am asking you in tutorial 4 to focus on 4-2. Tutorial 4-1 basically teaches you how to share data from your project in ArcGIS Online, okay? And then you can create a web map with some of that data. But I think that for our class, tutorial 4-2 is more interesting. If you haven't already, here you are going to work with 3D scenes and elevations. I want to point out that if you notice that the software doesn't have as many tools available once you are in a 3D scene, that is because 3D scenes in ArcGIS don't have a lot of analysis capabilities. There are very few tools besides editing the look or the shape or the color of some of the data that you are displaying. 3D GIS doesn't have a lot of analytical tool sets at this point. You are going to learn how to extrude a building, how to give a two-dimensional polygon, three-dimensional height, for example, with the extrusion tools and base heights. And my instructions in this tutorial, pay attention to these instructions here, okay? You should know that you can actually record media. You can record a fly-through with ArcGIS Pro of a three-dimensional scene, okay? So I really recommend that you watch this short video on how to record an animation. And when you record your animation, I recommend a 7 to 10 second clip, because if you record more than that, the animation can be a bit heavy. And then follow these instructions here to export the animation in ArcGIS Pro, and export it as a .mp4 or .avi video format. I'm also asking you to submit study questions 1, 2, 3 in a Word or a text document. These questions are on page 131, or rather tutorial 4-2 as well, right? What is the basis for the scene elevations? What is the difference between the base and absolute extrusion? And what would you need to do to make your data set Z aware? C aware is when you need to include vertical datum, right? To have a three-dimensional object. Okay, so while the tutorial is pretty short and it shows you how to move from 2D data to 3D data, I also want you to learn how to use the video tools and how to explore, and that way you could also use the on-screen navigator a little bit more so that you can explore some of those controls, okay? So this is a pretty short tutorial. Once you finish this, finish quiz 3. Quiz 3, I forgot to include it last week. There was already too many items. But basically, this is a quiz on geodatabases. So this goes with the lecture from 2 weeks ago. This should just be a review. And lastly, you have the midterm. The midterm is also just reviewing what we have covered up until this week, okay? It's only 55 points. There's multiple choice, true or false, matching questions. It's open book, and there's one essay question and one short answer question, okay? So it's not, I'm trying to make it, to give you enough work, but also not to make it overwhelming, especially some students get really anxious when there's a midterm and there's an exam. Don't be. This is just review of the content. You have 2 attempts as well, and it's due Sunday night, okay? So this would be a good week for students to catch up if you have fallen behind. There are a few students who I've been in conversation with, and if you need me to extend the midterm after the 25th, I'm looking at my calendar over here, after the 25th of September, I can do that, but only if you have been in touch with me already and you have been communicating with me your difficulty either installing the software or getting the textbook, okay? So I expect that other students will be able to proceed as they have been, and this is a good week to catch up again for those of you who are behind, and for those of you who are ahead, then this should be a short week for the most part. Next week we are going to have a few more tutorials next week, okay? Because we're getting ready to start looking at the data acquisition section as well. I do share some data sources that you can focus on here. You can start poking around and looking for some resource data. But next week, I'm going to give you a longer introduction into some of these resources, okay? Please be on the lookout for that check-in next week. And for next week, we're going to have a few tutorials. We're going to go over coordinates again. We're going to continue expanding our geodatabase, editing data. We're going to learn edit tools, and we're going to learn advanced editing tools as well. Okay? And we're almost closing the chapters of our textbook. By now, we are in tutorial 4, so we have 3 more chapters. So we're getting close to the end of the textbook again, okay? All right, that's it for me. Thanks, everyone. I hope that you are feeling a little more comfortable. As always, if you have any problems, check in with me. Thanks to the students who have written questions to me as well. As you might imagine, it's easier for me to answer your questions during office hours than sometimes through Canvas inbox, because by the time that I get to Canvas inbox, you might have already resolved your problems. So office hours work better for me. I have my afternoon and my early evening office hours from 4:30 to 5:30. And I also sent the announcement for the GIS tutor. We also have a GIS tutor as well. So please look into Dan's schedule and see what could work for you as well. He's also available on Saturdays and evenings, okay? So thanks, everyone. Have a good week. I look forward to catching up with your grades as well and finishing grading your tutorials, okay? Take care and have a good week.